everyone, and welcome to today's writing clinic. And you are joined by myself, Christine. I'm one of the English support tutors at the Manchester campus, and today we are going to be continuing to look at using the Academic Phrase Bank. Now, we did touch on this briefly last week. However, today I will continue a bit more as in how we can use the Academic Phrase Bank. All right, so let's get cracking with that. Okay. So let's go over a refresher of our previous writing clinics. Previously, we had looked at the academic word list that had a sub-list of list 1 all the way to list 10. And if you remember, list 1 dealt with words that are most commonly found in academic settings. These are across all disciplines. So irrespective whether you're studying health science or commerce, you would still use these words very frequently. Okay. And then that list went down into sub-list 10 of words that are not as common. We also looked at how to build a strong paragraph. Now, when you are writing in your assignments or your reports, having effective paragraphs is paramount to achieving your goals. Okay, so we looked at what should go into a strong paragraph. We should look at that each paragraph should focus on just one idea. It should have a topic sentence. Generally, your topic sentence is at the start of your paragraph. Then you would continue with providing evidence to support that relating to your topic sentence, and then you do an analysis of that evidence. Remember, we looked at PEE, which is your points, examples, and explain, okay? And then the end of your paragraph should have a conclusion or a transition sentence. Now, this sentence is normally how you would end off your paragraph. And if you were delving into something slightly different in the next paragraph, that's when you would use your transition sentence, okay, to have a smooth transition between two different topics and show the next paragraph is delving in a slightly different matter. And of course, we examined how to use evidence effectively. And as we all know, evidence should come from credible sources, okay, peer-reviewed sources if necessary. Always start with your university's library to find reputable sources. And if you can't find your sources that are needed, then you can look elsewhere, such as Google Scholar, as long as it meets the criteria of being a credible source. Okay. Now, when we are using evidence, it should also directly support argument. Okay. So this evidence shouldn't just be placed in your paragraph with no meaning to your work. It should have a direct impact. And of course, if you are using evidence, you need to explain it, okay? And that you would do through ways of analysis. So that is what we touched on. We have touched on so many aspects of writing, and I feel like we have started from a very, very basic. If you remember constructing a sentence, looking at a paragraph, and now we are looking at tools to enhance our writing. So let's look at our learning objectives. So we're going to look at learning objectives for today. We may have covered them last week, just a quick refresher of what we did. So we will look at the key sections of the Academic Phrase Bank. We'll learn how to use academic phrases for introductions, referring to sources, describing methods, reporting results, and writing conclusions. Also, practice using these phrases. So it's very important to actually incorporate these phrases in our writing. Now, we're also going to look at our progress and how we can plan to use it in the future. Now, you may have seen this QR code that was placed on the first page, and now it is also on page 3 or slide 3. This QR code, when you scan it, will take you directly to the Academic Phrase Bank, okay? So you give it a scan, keep it open on the side of you because you will need to refer to this website later when we are doing activities. So let's give it a go. Give it a quick scan and it will take you directly to the Academic Phrasebank. Okay, so today's session agenda. What is the Academic Phrasebank? Why is it important? How can we use the phrases? And we're going to look at some practical exercises and, of course, some self-reflection. So here we're going to have a go at writing. Okay, we're going to have a go at the different ways we can rewrite a sentence. This report is about how social media affects students. So how can we possibly rewrite the sentence? Okay, give it a go and then we will check our answers. Okay, so let's have a look at a possible answer. This report explores the impact of social media on students. So what we have done is change the sentence structure around a bit. Okay, so this report is about, we swapped that for a more formal way, and we have used the word explores the impact of social media. Okay, so we can rewrite that in a more academic sounding way. Let's have a look at the next sentence. So here we're going to rewrite the following sentence. This research looks into why renewable energy is important. So how could you rewrite it? Now, if your answer didn't match mine, that's perfectly okay because if you paraphrase, we all do that completely different from each other. So as long as it matches what your sentence topic was about, you are in great hands. So give this a go and let's have a check at how your answer is and see if it's very closely aligned with mine or not. I'll give you a minute or so to think about that. Okay, so let's see how we can rewrite that. This research investigates the significance of renewable energy. So here we have a fairly solid looking sentence. Okay, it sounds pretty impressive. To be fair, this reads pretty well as is. However, there's always room for improvement. So even if you I feel like I'm writing okay, I've been getting a great score in my essays, it's around 60, that's okay. There's always room for improvement, okay? So writing will be a continuous activity. You keep honing it like a skill. And if you keep at it, that 60 could go to 70 and an 80. The only limit is yourself. Right, so let's have a big think about our reflections. So which version to you sounded more professional? And which phrases could you use to start your next assignment. Okay, so this is a collaborative task. If you have a friend or two and you want to work together to do this, please join in. And in your pair or groups of three, write an introduction for the topic. And your topic introduction is the importance of group work. So you're only writing an introduction, okay? I'm not asking for a fully fledged essay, just an introduction, introducing your topic, and your topic is importance of group work in education. And then as you would delve into it in your body, that will deal with your positive, negatives. But for introduction, it's only going to be focusing on this is my topic. This is what I will cover in the rest of my theoretical essay. Okay, so we just want you to think about how you would do that, and then you can swap with your friends once you are done. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you now, and oops, and we are going to go back and have a look at the academic phrase bank. So let's have a look at that. And then we will get started. Okay. I think that was loaded. Here we go. And sharing my screen. Super. Alrighty. Now, I did show this last week. However, if you are not available for class or you didn't have a look at it, please, let's go through this together. Now, this viewpoint is a viewpoint of when you are looking at it on your laptop or on your desktop. If you are looking on your mobile phone, this will look completely different, okay? So don't worry too much if it doesn't match. All this information, general language functions, will generally be on your right. So if you move your phone around, you'll find this on your right. Okay, so just play around a little bit with it. It will take you to the right page. Don't get worried if it doesn't match mine. Now, here is the academic phrase bank. And I know we touched introducing work and referring to sources and describing methods last week. So today we'll be focusing on reporting results and discussing findings and writing conclusions, okay? Now, here on the left or right, depending on which technological device you're using, you'll have your general language functions, okay? And I always tell students, match this, your general language functions, to your assignment brief, okay? So if your assignment brief is asking you to be critical, then you would scroll down, look for the word critical, give it a double click or a single click, need be, and then it's going to give you an explanation to what being critical is. And it's going to tell you how you could possibly use it. Okay, so if you have information about introducing a problem and a limitations in theory and argument, then you click on that and you say, okay, I'm going to find a phrase that matches most closely to what I've said. Now here you may see it says Smith's argument relies too heavily on. Now when they say Smith's, all they are doing is simply alluding to the author, okay? Now when you copy paste this in your work or when you add this in your writing, you will change Smith's to whichever author you are using, whichever author's name, okay? And if their surname is Smith, then obviously you would keep it, okay? But this is if it is a singular author. Now, if you have Smith and Jones as your author, your two authors, you'd have Smith and Jones, whoever's name is first, that's how you pop it in, okay? Now, if you were to look at maybe the third one, the key problem with this explanation is that So let's say, for example, you were talking about AI usage. Okay, so you'll say the key problem with this explanation is that AI usage is, and then you would add on your own views, okay, that are supported by sources. Now, you may also see an X, and I'd be like, Christine, why is there an X in there? Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. However, if you see this X, it is simply a placeholder. It's a placeholder of a topic. So if we were to read your academic phrase, it says one criticism of much of the literature is on X. Is that? I'm not sure. Okay, so now let's use our topic, AI usage. So let's read it again. One criticism of much of the literature on AI usage is that. So all you do is swap out your X, which is a placeholder for your topic. So whenever you see X in your brain, just think, oh, that's topic, swap it in, and it'll read as needed. I just want to emphasize these are not full sentences, okay? They are phrases. They make a part up of your phrase or your sentence. So the reason why it won't be flagged per se as academic misconduct is because you are not taking a whole sentence or whole paragraph and popping it in, okay? The fact that it has these three dots or epilepsis is that you are meant to fill in your own information either at the end or in the beginning of that phrase, okay? So this is an incomplete sentence. If you need your information to make it a fully complete sentence. All we are doing is looking at different ways to go about improving our writing and finding specific phrases related to introducing, referring to sources, describing methods, and of course, so forth. So when you see Smith, when you see X or Y, so let me look at a comparison. So I do a comparison of X and Y. Okay, compare and contrast. Okay, let's look at compare and contrast, introducing differences. Okay, and for this, it's first sentence. X is different from Y in a number of respects. So I got two placeholders here. I got X and I got Y. They are both placeholders. Okay. However, it will be when we are comparing two different topic matters, okay? So let's say we are talking about goats, males and females, okay? So let's do this. X can represent male. X, males are different than Y, which will be females, in a number of respects, okay? So you will say, this is a different topic, and that's a different topic. So when you see X and Y in your phrases, they are just placeholders for different topics. Okay, and again, we got Smith. Obviously, the year 2015 is a year that the book was published. If your book was published in 2022, please use that date accordingly, okay? And very rarely would we be using 2015 because that's almost 9 years out of date. And we will try and keep our sources 5 years and under. Okay, so that's what we will take note of when we are using the phrase bank. Just wanted to clear that up just to make sure we have no confusion with using the academic phrase bank. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Just going to share my PowerPoint again. And let's get cracking on with the rest of it. Okay, so I'm just going to skip past them. Done that bit. And now I'm going to go into exercise 4, reporting results. Okay, so before I do that bit, apologies, should have done this before I started. Okay, so I'm focusing with this bit, this section, not introducing work, not that, but reporting results. Okay, so you click on reporting results, and it will give you a brief overview of when you would report your results. Okay, so normally you would use reporting results when you are doing a report. Okay, and it gives you a brief overview of when, how, and why we do it. And then you'll see all the way starting from referring to the back of the research aims or procedures and scrolling all the way down to summarizing the results section. So it's quite an intensive list, okay? It explains everything you need. So if you have a chart or a table in your data and you've attached it, it's a good way to say, how can I refer to that? I know sometimes I meet students that have a chart in and then there's no alluding to the chart. It's just popped in, no data to back it up. It's just an image. So this is a way for you to say, oh, how can I add it in? How can I write about it? How can I make it make sense? Okay. So if you were to look at it, table 1 or figure 1, depending on which one you are using, if you have appendixes, it will be figure 1. So that's one way of getting that done. Okay, so just wanted you to be familiar and make sure you are on the same page with me. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint again. Okay, so make sure you got that open because we're going to be using that. Okay, so now we looked at section reference, which is reporting results. And I mentioned you will generally use this when you are writing reports because you have to comment on your findings or what you've noticed. Okay, so now we're going to use academic phrases to report the following findings and discuss the implications. So I have this blanket statement. 70% of respondents preferred online learning. Now, if I were to do an analysis of this and to write it in a way that reports it, how would I go about that? Okay, because it's basically a statement at this point, I need to rewrite it that shows I am reporting this result. I have found this result. I have noticed this result. I have observed it. I have given out a survey. I've done interviews. And this is what I've gotten from my control group. Okay. So let's see how we can possibly rewrite that. And an example answer is the results indicate. So this means I had a group of people. I have asked them a question, obviously pertaining to online learning, and I have now decided or discovered that 70% of them expressed. So it's their opinion that they are expressing a preference for online learning. Now, when you are reporting on said information, yours would be a lot more informative than mine, okay? So you'd say what type of online learning, there's one that they prefer. This is a very general blanket statements, okay? So let's look at another one. 30% of students say that group work helps them to understand better. Now, excuse me, I want you to have a go at this, and then we can check our answers together. Thank you. Okay, so let's have a go at that answer. Now, you would may vary from mine because we don't answer in the same way. Okay, but as long as you convey the information and the topic matches what has been conveyed, that's all we need to do. Okay, so let's have a look at it. The findings suggest that 30% of the students considered group work to be beneficial for understanding concepts. Okay, so now we've built a bit more on this. So now we are changing it to the findings and the suggest, and then considered, oops, group work to be beneficial. And it's like, why is it beneficial? Okay, how is group work helping? And it's telling us this important word, understanding concepts. So these students really prefer group work because it helps build their concept knowledge. They feel a bit more confident when it's a group setting for building up concepts. Okay, maybe the rest of the 70% prefer lectures, and maybe, the 10, or maybe that 70% is not all lecture based. Maybe 16 like lectures, maybe 10% like reading the material by themselves. Okay. But now this is delving a bit more. It's giving us a wider overview of what is going on and when we are reporting our results. Okay, so let's have a quick reflection. How can discussing results help you make your argument stronger in your essays? Okay, or help you make stronger arguments in your essays. So if you discuss your findings, it brings more of a, I actually believe that, or I can see this correlates with that, or this information shows me a contrast in this matter. However, that is up to you. However you display your information should be without a biasness, okay? So remember to just display information, to not report on any of your personal feelings when you are talking about data. Report as neutral as possible. And you can also have a think about that. Okay. So now we are going to be looking at writing a conclusion. Writing a conclusion. So writing your conclusion is normally at the end of your assignment, normally at the end of your essay, your presentation, your report. And to be fair, it's something I've struggled with quite a bit because it's like, I need to get this done. I can't say any new information. I just got to tally up all the information I've mentioned in the beginning all the way till the end. So to me, conclusions are always a little bit tricky. It has taken me a bit of time, and I feel a bit more confident with a conclusion than when I was at my undergrad. Okay, so let's go over to our Academic Phrasebank. Okay, so we looked at introducing work, we looked at referring to sources, we looked at describing methods, reporting results, discussing findings, and writing conclusions. So let's have a look at that. It gives us a brief synopsis or brief summary of what a conclusion is. If you ever just needed to have a quick check, like, oh, am I on the right track for writing a conclusion? Am I adding incorrect information? So it'd just be nice to have a quick read over. So now, if you also are a bit, I'm not sure what goes in my conclusion. I've seen it, I've done it a few times, but I'm not 100% sure. Quick check without even having to look at it. Look at the titles of these sections, okay? The first one is restating the aims of the study. Now, I want you to think about when was the last time you have matched your introduction to your conclusion. Because in our introduction, we very loftily, we're like, these are the aims I would like to achieve in this, or these are the set outcomes I would like to examine, or the key concepts. And then you do a fantastic job of mentioning it in your body. And then when it comes to your conclusion, you sort of forget to match the two because it's like, oh, introducing, starting off, and then conclusion, you're like, okay, this is what happened. So I just like to gentle reminder to always match your conclusion to your introduction, okay? And by ways of doing that, will be restating your aims of the study. So that way you got a great balance. You're starting off with your aims, ending off with your aims, okay? And if you were doing a report, you can do a summarizing of your main research findings. Now, always remember in your conclusion, no new information, only referring to information that has been covered from introduction all the way through your body. Then, if need be, you consider implications. You can also talk about the significance of the findings, the contribution of the study. So if you are unsure on where to center your conclusion, having a quick read of these will help guide you, okay? Of course, if you are doing a report, you need to acknowledge limitations and you make mention of recommendations for further research work. A lot of these sections will be very much dependent on whether you're writing an essay or presentation or a report, okay? Now, very few essays will talk about the limitations of your study. However, if you are doing a report, this is pretty much on track, okay? So I would say if you're doing your essays, stick to probably these first two. If you're doing a report, then these can incorporate a bit more, okay? Your recommendations could possibly be a whole paragraph by itself, and your conclusion could be separate. But again, that is much dependent on your assignment guidelines. All right. So if you are looking for setting out for recommendations for practice or policy, there you go. That will help you to get going with that. All right. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And then we will finish up with our activity that we have there. We will finish it nice and tidy. Okay. So, writing conclusion. So, what I will need from you is your help. We got some information that we need to fill in, and that is to fill in the blanks with the appropriate academic phrases and then to write your own conclusion. So, text. In conclusion, the study, blank, the role of group work in improving communication. These findings blank that the group work also enhances critical thinking. Blank. Furthermore, research is required to explore these benefits in greater depth. Okay, so have a think about that. and we will check our answers in a bit. Okay, so let's have a go at this. In conclusion, this study highlights the role of group work in improving communication skills. These findings suggest that group work also enhances critical thinking. However, further research is required to explore these benefits in greater depth. So those are some of the answers we could have used. If yours did not quite match mine, that's okay. We still, there are words we can use interchangeably. The most important thing is that we get it in to match the same type of topic that we want, and information is consistent. Okay. So, what I would recommend moving forward is to definitely compile your own academic phrase bank. Now, if you remember when we looked at the academic phrase bank, there was a lot of information. Okay. There's lots of subsections, and when you open up those subsections, there's a wealth of information underneath it, and it could be a little jarring if you're using it for the first time. Okay, so I would suggest start with your introducing work or your introduction. Have a look at that. Choose one of those sections to open, have a scroll, find a phrase that you are comfortable with using or you would like to use in the future and copy paste it, keep it in a Word doc and have it available to you, okay? Now, I got asked a really good question from one of the students that attended last week's clinic. And they asked if they need to use every single phrase in the academic phrase bank. Now, I do not think that is a good way to spend all of your time. It is a tool. It is a tool for helping you if you get stuck. It's a tool for helping you write more academically. It is a tool for you to have a wide word bank of phrases to use for all parts of sections of your writing. So while it exists, I do not expect you to use it in its entirety. Okay. I don't think we could also. I'm not sure what type of essay report hybrid would require you using that. So, like I said, some sections very clearly would be used in essay setting, and some would definitely only be used in an academic setting. Okay. So, depending on your needs, you will use that. Now, I will like to recommend you creating a personal document, okay? But if you get overwhelmed by using your introduction, referring to sources, describing methods, if that's too much for you to get started with, don't do all the sections, okay? If it's going to overwhelm you, just pause with that. Stop with your introductions, and then I would say conclusions. So look for good phrases you can use in your introductions and your conclusions. I would say maybe use about 3 phrases for each, okay, to help you to choose ones that you are definitely going to use. Now, the reason why I say choose a few rather than a lot is that I don't want you to be overwhelmed with it. I don't want you to overthink it and not use what will be helpful to you. Okay, so I would also like you to look at your current writing work. Look at what phrases you are using, okay? What phrases are coming to you comfortably. If you just want to look at introducing your sources and crediting your sources, and you like using the different ways that you can add in the authors, that's fantastic. If you are much more confident with just adding in a good introduction phrase and a good conclusion phrase, that's a great start, okay? Now, writing is a continuous tool that you will hone. Remember that sentence that read pretty well at the beginning? It is something that we continuously take steps to improve. Do not be overwhelmed with all this information, okay? I will always suggest take it as slowly and in tiny chunk sizes that are easy to chew on and not too much, okay? Now, this is myself, Christine. This is my colleague, Kieran, and we are part of your English support tutors at the Manchester campus. Here's our email address. You can reach out to us, and we are available Monday to Friday. If you need help with any of the following, we are more than ready to help. If you just want to chat with us, that's also great. We are here for your presentation skills. If you would like to feel confident about your next presentation, reach out to us. If you would like us to go over your assignment with you, you're not sure where to start, we are here. All general academic skills. We are offer in-person and online sessions like this. And if you're not comfortable with coming in by yourself, you're more than welcome to bring a friend or two. And we are ready to help. Okay, so thank you so much for joining today's session, and I hope you have a wonderful new year. Goodbye.